There are some studies that you're going to do in the Bible that once you have studied them, then it affects everything that you do from that point on. One of those to me was the Feast of the Lord. It changed everything about the way that I read the Bible. Once I realized that through the Bible there are these dates, the months, the dates, and the years that are given, I started tracking all of them. When I finished, I was surprised to see what was repeated and how most of the significant occurrences in the Bible happened to be on the Feast of the Lord. Then I went back and I restudied the Feast of the Lord in order to find out what he was doing, and did I miss something? You know, these weren't really taught to us in Bible school, so I didn't. I guess I didn't really have a grasp. But when I studied them by myself and I started looking at them, everything about the Bible changed, including into the New Testament. Now, if you are of the belief that everything is fulfilled on the cross, you'll have a difficult time. One of the things that I had to do was I had to empty my mind of things that I thought that I knew. And so I made a decision. If I read it, what I read is what it is. Then I have to adjust it. Once you do that, then he can lead you. He can lead you into all truth and understanding. Then the truth will set you free. Then you can see it from his perspective. If you go read a book on prophecy, you're going to get the tone that that book is trying to give you. You know, so that's what I decided to do. I decided to empty my mind and my head about the things that I thought that I was sure of that I knew, and until I read it, unless I double checked it in 2 or 3 verses, then I was open. It changed everything about the way that I read the Bible. I keep saying I'm not this smart, but somehow going back and looking at the law of Moses and looking at what God had told Moses to tell the people to do, to follow in order to be blessed, it was true. It was actually true. Then you get into the prophets, and the prophets just show you those that did and those that didn't. What happened if you didn't? What happened if you did? Then you get into the New Testament, and there's this concept in the New Testament that it's new, it has replaced. Jesus said it this way: if someone teaches someone not to follow, not to observe the law of Moses, then he will be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. If one teaches to do and to observe all that the law of Moses has told you, then he will be called the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. That changed everything about the way that I read the New Testament, because even in Acts, I found the Feast of the Lord being carried out, being fulfilled, being observed after the cross. So this is one of those, the division of Abiyah, or as I like to call it, Happy Birthday Jesus, because we've either read it for ourselves or we were taught something that may not necessarily be there. So the division of Abiyah. Okay, in Exodus 12:1. Now, in order to be able to look at this, I have to establish something. I have to establish to you what the beginning month of the year of the calendar of the Lord is. If I don't do that, then the rest of it doesn't fall into place. So God, the Lord told Moses. Now this should be capital L-O-R-D. For some reason, the New King James Version decided not to do that. But he told Moses and Aaron, this month shall be the beginning of months. It shall be the first month, the Kodesh of the year for you. So the first month, what month is that? And he says the beginning in Hebrew is Rosh. Rosh Hashanah should be the beginning day. So beginning is Rosh, and then this month is actually Kodesh, or the new moon. So month in the Bible actually means when you see the moon, when you see the new moon that is coming. So in this month, for this moon, because the moon is going to show up 12 times throughout the year, but on this month, so On this new moon will be the first day. But so let's take a look at a little bit into that. So the beginning of the month, or the month that begins it, is called Rosh Chodesh. Okay, take a look at this. And Moses said to the people, remember this day. Now we're talking about a day. We know the month. We don't know the name of it yet, but it says, remember this day, for it was in this day that you came out of Egypt, the house of bondage. So he repeats it again, on this day, in the month of, now we have the month of Abib, that we can see. Okay, so the day and the month of Abib, we have to find out what Abib is. And so it's on the feast of unleavened bread, you shall keep 7 days of unleavened bread as I commanded you, and the feast of the month of the Abib, for in the month of Abib you came out of Egypt. So now he's repeated it 2 or 3 times again. By the way, this is in Exodus 34. This one appears in Exodus 13. So Abib and the day is what we have to look at. Okay, so then the Lord says to Moses, now, this I kind of found out by reading. I remembered, so I had to go back and look at it. Remember when the plagues came upon Egypt, one of the plagues was the plague of hail, and he told Moses, stretch out your hand and then hail will come. But the hail only affected the Egyptians. It did not affect the Israelites in the land of Kodesh, or in the best of the land. Ramesses is what it's called. Okay, so, and there may be hail in all the land of Egypt. He says, now this is the key to Aviv. The flax and the barley were struck. For the barley was in the head and the flax was in the bud, meaning the flax and the barley were ready. They were ripe. So what's he telling us? So the flax and the barley were destroyed. Now this is when the hail comes. This is the barley of the Egyptians. Okay, so the barley that was destroyed, since the barley had headed and the flax was in bloom. He repeats it again. Okay, actually that's New King James, and this is the NIV. The NASAB says it was ruined, for the barley was in the ear and the flax was in the bud. 3 different ways of looking at it. So basically they all said the barley was ready to be harvested. So it was in this month that the barley was destroyed. Why would he destroy the barley? No, he's just pointing to you and telling you what month this was. And he says, but the wheat and the spelt were not struck, for they are late crops. So in other words, the barley, which blooms early, was destroyed, but the wheat was not affected, since it blooms late. So in the beginning of the spring is what it's telling you. Okay, and Aviv means to be tender. So in other words, when the barley was Aviv, when the barley was ready, on that month is the month that will be called the first of the month to you, in the beginning of the springtime. So there is something that happens. Well, before we get to that, let's look at this. So these are the plagues, okay? And so you had a plague of hail, and the barley was Aviv. The barley was ready. I want you to notice the way that God works. And then you had a plague of locusts. So whatever wasn't destroyed was eaten by the locust. And then you had a plague of darkness for 3 days. So even if something was left over from then, they couldn't go out and harvest it to look at it, because they couldn't see for 3 days. Then you had the plague of the firstborn. So there's a progression in the way that you know, God did even the plagues. You know, and the idea was that they were going to be affected so much that they couldn't go after Israel. They wouldn't have the harvest. They wouldn't have the meals. They wouldn't have the strength, in essence, to they have to repair a lot of things. And especially after the firstborn, because it says that the day after, or the day that they left, the Egyptians were burying the dead. So they couldn't muster up enough to go after them. Even Pharaoh had to wait until the second day to go after them. That gave him a day start. So the barley was Aviv. So in the beginning of spring, when the barley was ready. But there's a little bit more to that in order for you to understand. And the concept is this. The concept is that they would go out and they would look at the moon. And the moon is going to be dark for 2 to 3 days. And then when they see the sliver of the moon, then that would be called the first day when they sight the moon, and different people would look at the moon and sight the moon. Okay, but when they would see the sliver of the moon, then they knew that that was the first of the month, the Rosh Chodesh, the first moon that they would see. And then what would happen is that they would go to the barley fields, and they would gather from the barley, put it on the fire, and if the barley cooked, or if it roasted, then they knew that that month was the first month. If they saw the moon, and then they went and got the barley, and then they tried to roast the barley and it vaporized, or it popped, or in other words, it couldn't roast because it was way too tender, it was too early, then the next month or the next sighting of the moon would be the first month, and then they will go again and test the barley. So this is why in Hebrew, you have Adar is a 12th month, and sometimes you add Adar 2, or what we call a leap year. This is why sometimes Passover is in March and sometimes Passover is in April. In 2014 to 2015, it's going to be in the month of April. So that's the progression. So this is where we're at. So in the first month, they've tested it, and in the month of Aviv is the first month, which is our March or our April, depending on what it is, not in January. Okay, this is what the Lord told Moses. This is not what I'm trying to teach you. This is what the Lord told Moses. This will be your first month. From here on in is where you start your year, in the springtime, where we are starting our year in the middle of winter. Okay, that's point number one. Okay, so Luke 1, he's talking about the division of Abiyah, and in the so we need to find out when the division of Abiyah. Okay, so Zacharias, who's married to one of the daughters of Aaron, which is Elizabeth, is in following the order of his division, meaning he's following a progression. In the temple of the Lord, in front of a multitude of people, at the hour of incense, he is there, offering incense unto the Lord based on his order, meaning some people came before him, some priests came before him, week by week. So David sets this up, and he's following the process. But there's a multitude that is there. There's a lot of people that are waiting for him to come out. So something is going on at the hour of incense. And when Gabriel, the angel of the Lord, shows up and stands on the right side at the altar of incense. So when Zacharias is offering incense unto the Lord, which we have to question, and then by his order, so what month was this? That Gabriel comes in and declares to him, your wife Elizabeth is going to have a son. So if we can figure out when this was, we know the month that this happened. Then we'll know 9 months later when John is born, right? Okay, so it's a little bit tricky, but it all starts with, you have to know the moon, you have to know the first month, you have to know the month of Aviv, because from that day, from that month, the feast of the Lord began. And if you're off on that month, you'll be off all the rest of the time. Okay, so let's look at a couple of words. So Zacharias means the Lord Yah has remembered, Yehovah has remembered. Zekar, he has remembered. And remembered is more than just, oh, he forgot. No, remembered is he speaks, and it's a memorial. You are going to speak it over and over and over again. Okay, so what he had promised to Zacharias, we think when we remembered, oh, it's something that I forgot. God doesn't forget. When it says that the Lord remembered, it simply means it was time. The Lord remembered Hannah. The Lord remembered Rachel. The Lord remembered Leah. No, it didn't mean that he forgot. It just means now it was time in order for the next step to be taken, the next son to be born. So Zekar is a memorial. He said it as a memorial. So in that time, then it would come to pass. So that's what Zechariah means. Okay, the division of Abijah simply means Ab is the father and Yah is Yehovah. the Father is Jehovah, or Jehovah is the Father. Okay, so he's operating under this division, under this name. And Elizabeth simply means the daughter or the God of the oath, much like Bathsheba. So this is Elisheba. Okay. And by the way, Elizabeth is maybe named after the wife of Aaron, who was also Elisheba. Okay, so Elizabeth is from the daughters of Aaron, so she's a Levite, which makes Zacharias also, because he's a priest in the temple inside of possibly the holy place. That makes him a Levite, but not only a Levite, he's a priest. He's from the tribe of Kohath. So the Bible, if you know these things, the Bible is trying to tell you something. If you don't know the tribes, if you don't know the names, the meaning of the names, if you don't know where they come from, the daughters of Aaron, then you miss a lot of information. Okay, so by the order of his division, so David sets us up. His lot, meaning they cast lots, they would pick the best of the best during that time, and then his lot came up, his number came up, okay, to burn incense when he was in the temple. And again, the whole multitude, many people were outside waiting for him. Why are they waiting? You know, what's going on? At the hour of incense. The hour is also important. Okay, so the hour of incense at this time was probably 9 a.m. or in the third hour of the day, at the beginning of the day, because they can also do this at the end of the day, or at the 9th hour, or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But this one apparently is at 9 o'clock in the morning, because they were waiting for him to come out. It's the start of the day. Okay, so take a look at this. When David is getting ready to give Solomon the temple, for the temple to be built, he gets all the priests, he gets all the musicians, and he lines them up. And in this week, these priests and these musicians would be working. The following week, these weeks, you know, these priests, these Levites, and these singers would have to come to Jerusalem in order to perform. Remember, they don't all live in Jerusalem. They may live out in Ephraim. They may live out by Nazareth in the Galilee, and they all come in their appointed times to come in. So the first 8, and then you have the second 8, and then you have the third 8, which is 24 total. So Abijah is the 8th one. Okay, 24 total, and which means that Jehoiarib would be on the first week, the second week, the third week, the fourth week, the fifth week. So Abijah would obviously be in the 8th week, if this was the only thing that they had to worry about. Okay, so then if these first weeks would be the first month, and then this would be the second month, if you follow it. Now, there's 24 of them, so that would come 2 times a year. So 24 times 2 is going to be 48, and in the Hebrew calendar, there's 51 weeks. So in other words, 51 minus a 48 would mean that there would be 3 weeks that supposedly one wasn't going to be working at the temple, or the phrase in the Old Testament is 3 times a year you will come before me. So during these 3 times, Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles, all the priests would come in to serve all of the people that would come for these 3 feasts. So the whole year is covered up. Okay, so now we have to find out where these fall in. And if we go and look at this, then it would be the first week would be the first priest that would come, and then you would have Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread that usually cover 2 weeks. That would move Jedaiah to the 4th week, when normally they would be the 2nd, and so forth and so on. This would be the first month, and then this would be the 2nd month. And basically what happens is here, Abijah, that was the 8th, is moved over to the 10th, to the 10th week, in the second month is when Abijah would be working. So Zacharias is operating in the third month. Okay, so it's 4 weeks, and then the last 2 weeks. So in other words, during Pentecost is when during this time is when Abijah is coming. So all the multitude that is there because of Pentecost. And Zacharias is in the temple offering incense unto the Lord during one of the feasts, or that everyone was required to come. So the multitude that is there is going to be during Pentecost. Okay, so did you follow that, right? Normally Jedaiah is in the second week, but because Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread is there, they're moved to the fourth week. Everybody moves down, and Abijah goes from the 8th to the 10th, or during Pentecost. It's when Zacharias would be offering. Okay, in the third month. So now let's go over the calendar. Our calendar starts in January, February, March, April, all the way through 12 months. The Jewish calendar starts in the month of Aviv. Now, in the law of Moses, the month is called Aviv. When you get into Esther, or when you get into the later prophets, it's called Nisan. Okay, because the Nisan is actually coming from the Assyrian or the Babylonian. So we're looking at the name Aviv in the law of Moses. Now, in this example, we're saying that the first month is going to be in the month of March. But again, I can tell you that if they have Adar, if they have Adar 2, or the barley is not Aviv, then they add another month into that, which then moves April up. Okay, so for the sake of this conversation, we're going to start at March. Now, there's another thing that I want you to notice that I didn't know. You know, once I did a little bit of research, then it became very obvious to me. You say, well, you know, it was never that way, and you know, what we have now is a little bit more accurate. But there's something that is hidden in our calendar that you may not be aware of. September, or the 7th month, in the Hebrew, September is our 9th month. But September, sept, means 7. 8, oct. November, novius. December, deca. You know, decathon, the 10th. You know, where in December, in our calendar, is the 12th month. So somewhere in our calendar, these were the months that they were in. And then King Gregory is the one that kind of changed all of this. Okay, so but at one time we had the same information. We were our months seem to correlate to what the Bible calls for. Somebody changed that. When they changed that, then we, you know, because unless you go and study the Old Testament, you'll never see this. Okay, so March was the first, or Aviv, and then the 5th month, or the month of Av, is the month that is not mentioned in the Bible. But it seems to be the 5th month is the one where everything goes wrong. That's in the month of July, in the month of in the summertime. Okay, the temples were always destroyed in the summertime because the kings would, or the conquering armies would always fight right after the spring, during the summertime. They could move armies all over. During the wintertime, they're stuck. They're stuck at a place. So everything usually that happens is going to be somewhere in the summertime. So the 5th month is usually when the temples are destroyed. Solomon's temple and Herod's temple were both destroyed in the 5th month. Okay, so that's kind of, this is our calendar, and this is the Jewish calendar. So we're going to go by the first month is going to be on the month of Aviv. So if he's operating in the 3rd month, it would be somewhere in May. We're talking about Zacharias. Okay, so in the third month, it's when Gabriel visits Zacharias. In the third month, remember it's 4 weeks, and then in the division of Abijah is in the second week of would be in the second week of Sivan or the second week of May. Okay, and then 6 months later, it says that Gabriel visits Mary. And it tells you 6 months afterwards that he goes and visits Mary. So in the month of November, Gabriel is visiting Mary, and then he announces to her that she's also going to have a child. So, but 3 months here in the month of Sivan. Okay, that means that from 3 months, if you add 9 months, so somewhere in the month of March or 9 months later, John is born. In the month of March, in the month of Aviv, in the first month of the year. Okay, so that means that then Mary, 3 and 9, then Mary would have had Jesus been born in the month of September or the month of Etanim, or in the 7th month. 6 days he worked, and the 7th day he rested. So from back on this time, 9 months, then it would be in the month of September. John, 3rd month, 9 months, it would be somewhere in the month of March. Okay, so let's add. So Gabriel visits Zacharias during Pentecost. And Pentecost is 1 day, to the day. Not the day after, not the day before, not 7 days. It's 1 day. So it had to be on that day that he would visit him. Okay, and that means that then John would be born in Passover on the 14th of the first month of the month of Aviv, or during one of the most famous feasts of the Lord. That means that Jesus would be born in the month of September, or in the Feast of Tabernacles, in the month of September, where we are celebrating whatever we think we say in the month of December. Because this is what religion has taught us. This is what religion, and because I guess they know we don't go and study the Old Testament, because they tell you don't have to, it's already been fulfilled. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to study it. Well, there's a reason that they're telling us not to study it. Because if we ever studied this, we'd actually see what God was doing. And he's working on his feast. He's not working just by chance. He wasn't born in the winter time. He was born in the fall time, in the Feast of Tabernacles, when the law of Moses would be read to the people over and every 7 years you're going to take the law of Moses and repeat it to the people. So when a young one is born among you that wasn't there 7 years before, and now he's 7 years old, when he hears the word of Moses being read, the sojourner that has come, that is new to you, will know the word of the Lord. And the word of the Lord became flesh. It all makes sense. It all fits in place if we know the feast of the Lord. So it makes sense that, and he tabernacled, and we beheld his glory, and he dwelt among us. So in the Feast of Tabernacles is when Jesus would have been born, not in the month of December. December the 25th, if you ever just go do a Google on it, go look at all the gods that are born on December the 25th, and you'll find that the majority of all the gods from all the religions are celebrated or were born on December the 25th. Okay, so this is what we're celebrating. This is what religion is celebrating. This is what we know. And then we have this feeling of the holiday spirit, and but that's just a feeling that, the same way that we feel in July the 4th, when we feel patriotic, it's a feeling that the world sells us, but he was born in the month of September. Okay, so, and the reason that I know that the month of September is the beginning of the fall, because there is a verse in Jeremiah 36 when Jeremiah is going, Zedekiah calls him to come and speak to him, and Jeremiah calls him, and he says, now the king was sitting in the winter house in the 9th month. Novius, in the 9th month, with a fire burning on the hearth before him. So even the Bible will tell you that November and December would be the beginning of the winter times. So when we're celebrating the beginning of our first year, it's still in the middle of December. February is still cold. The month of March and April are the beginning of the spring times, or when the Lord decides that this is when he's going to start his work. This is when you will come. It'll be easy for you. You know, it's in the beginning of the springtime. There's a freshness in the air. Okay, you can check on the Abiyah to see if it's ready. So this is the calendar that, if you study the Old Testament, you'll see it clearly. If you don't, then whatever they tell you out there. And I remember a couple 5, 6, 7 years ago, there was a push to get a Christ out of Christmas, you know, to get the term Christ out, call it the holidays. And then many Christians, you know, got it. Oh, how can they do that? How can they take it out? What are we defending? We're not defending something that God set up. We're defending something that religion has set up. But because we don't know, we don't study it, you know, we don't see it. So happy birthday, you know, happy birthday, Jesus. During the month of December, during the Feast of Tabernacles, the feast where Moses says every 7 years, or in every Feast of Tabernacles, you will build booths outside. You will stay outside so that you'll remember the way that we lived when the Lord took us out of the wilderness. There is a humbleness that takes into consideration. And then when we read that he was born in a manger, well, you know, you go look it up in the Greek, and it says that it was a trough for feeding animals. So we think, you know, they took Jesus and they put him in swaddling clothes, blankets, and they put him in a trough where the animals. That's the Greek. That's kind of what it tells you. But manger is where they didn't have barns, but they had stables, you know, and or they would have lean-tos, you know, a shelter. So when the rain or the wind, you know, you would put the animals in a lean-to. So in order to be covered at night from the if it was raining or whatever it was. In other words, it was a booth. It was a tabernacle. You know, but in our Western minds, we think, oh, well, he was in a barn, he was in a stable, it was closed, and yeah, no. If he was born during the Feast of Tabernacles, these booths would be all over in every other yard, you know, so, I mean, the day that I looked at it and I studied, and I thought, oh my God, you know, he was born in the Feast of Booths, in the Feast of Tabernacles, and he was fulfilling exactly what Moses has said all along. And we don't teach that because we don't read the Old Testament. We don't make the connections. So this took me a while, because you have to know the feast, you have to know the moons and months, and then you have to know the divisions. So there's a lot of reading that's involved, but he will lead you, he will guide you into all truth and understanding.